Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
Did you think we wouldn't notice, Chaos Kids? I'm Naomi.
I'm Amber. This is Crime, Wine, and Chaos.
Woot.
Oop.
Hello.
What didn't we notice?
What did we notice?
What didn't we notice?
Everything. We notice everything.
We know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sister.
Sister, hi.
Hi.
What is up with you?
Thank you for asking. So you may notice that I'm drinking water because after we are done
in a giant container.
Not giant like yours.
It's pretty giant.
Okay, listen.
Okay,
yes.
You know, it's all fun to make. It's all well and good to make fun of me, and then
listen.
Okay,
yours was a two-hander. I saw you do this. I was like, whoa. The reason for my water is because after this, we are going to 9 Inch Nails.
That's tonight?
That's tonight.
That's exciting.
I'm so excited.
Is it at Climate Pledge?
It is.
I hate that arena.
I do too. But Trent didn't ask us what was the good spot in Seattle, so
well, you know,
we go where Trent goes. We go where
he should have called.
He didn't. I'll let him know.
Okay. Oh yeah, you let him know. Mm-hmm. I said he should have picked a better venue.
I know. You know what?
Okay, well, that sounds exciting. I can't wait to hear all about it.
Yeah. I
did see like some TikToks. I've seen some TikToks about it since the tour started.
Oh.
And I saw one recently where somebody, I can't remember if it was a guy or girl, was saying like, I don't know if it's just me or what's going on, but like it was weird because everyone was just sitting in their seats like this.
You know what's so funny is Michael and I were talking about that, and it's like that might happen because most of his fan base is going to be our age and older. And it's a work night.
I mean,
this is what I love about, like, I don't want to be.
Well, you know, it's like when I went to see The Cure last year, it was actually 2 years ago now. I went to see The Cure, and it was like the aged goth scene. So it was very much like grandparents were there.
That's
you know,
right.
People were like, you know, like being pushed around in wheelchairs, and it, you know, like because they were old and needed help walking, you know, like
that's my kind of scene. Like we'll stand until our hip hurts and then we'll sit. And I'd rather that than like, you know, having to forego having seats up front because there's a mosh pit and I might die, you know,
which is pretty much why I never went to 9 Inch Nails when we were in high school.
Samesies, because it felt unsafe.
Yes.
We're at the age where it's safe now.
It's safe to go. It's safe to get into the pool. All right. Well, I hope you have a wonderful time.
I hope so too.
So we've covered what you're drinking. We've covered what you're doing this evening.
What are you doing? What's new?
What am I doing? I have started the slow and steady packing game over here is what I'm doing.
Sister.
You know, look, I don't know where I'm going yet. I don't even know when I'm going yet, but I might as well start packing now because I know for sure that I'm going. So
only God knows where I've been. Well, I've been recruited to help your son move.
I've heard that.
I've got a little collection of boxes started at my desk at work.
Oh, that's sweet. That's very nice of you. I've also been holding on to my boxes as packages have been coming in. I did get myself some supplies. And I think I'm going to do that pods thing. If it all works out, I think I'm going to do the pods thing.
That's a good choice. Good choice.
Then you pack at your leisure. They move it for you. You unpack at your leisure. They take it away.
Yeah, that's really smart, actually.
Yeah.
Next time I move, which unfortunately might be sooner than later, I'll either do that or just full on throw down and hire movers. Like I can't do it again. I cannot.
No, either way. Like, cause you know, it's one thing to like move it all at your leisure into the thing. Cause then what I could do is I could like, you know, over the course of however many days, I can move like boxes and things in there on my own. I just need a couple of extra hands one day to just move some pieces of furniture.
For sure.
You know?
Well, even though I loved that I laughed until I cried, having you help me move into this place, I still don't ever want to do that again. I am not
Look,
moving furniture
that was
upstairs.
because of your goddamn mattress. I don't know what is going on with that mattress.
It's really comfortable if that matters.
It does not.
Okay. Well,
It's
fuck,
not.
it didn't matter that day.
Definitely
Mm-mm.
not.
Yeah.
Although I did learn about, because of you, that you can buy these covers. So I did.
Oh, good.
I'm ready. I'm
Those
ready
are
to move my
lifesavers.
mattress.
Great. Ready.
Although my mattress will be much easier to move than yours.
I'm
So
sorry. I know.
when I call in that favor, sis, and you and Mike will
Absolutely.
come over,
I'll be there.
it'll be easy peasy.
I'll be there with my rig. Load her up.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Sister, you have
Yeah.
a crime for me today.
Yeah, I've got a bummer.
Great.
Great. You ready?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to tell you about Kiernan Brown.
Okay.
Okay. Kiernan spent most of his childhood in Chicago. At the age of 15, his family relocated to Lansing, Michigan.
Whoa, culture shock.
Culture shock. Yeah. This was because his stepdad was accepted to Michigan State University.
Nice.
Yeah. He was the middle child and only boy. He had an older sister and a younger sister. Both of his parents worked full-time to support the family. And Kiernan was diagnosed with ADHD as a young child.
Okay.
He also claimed that he was diagnosed with OCD, but that couldn't be verified.
Okay.
That's what he said.
Okay.
He was on prescriptions for his ADHD, and he had an IEE plan at school.
What's IEE stand for?
IEP. It's, I don't know what it stands for, but it's like a 504k. Like you get special,
Like extra help and
yes,
stuff.
yeah.
Got you.
Yep. As a child, he seemed to be unable to regulate his emotions.
Okay.
He
I
wa-
mean, that's hard work. I mean, I know lots of adults who can't regulate their fucking emotions. You know what I'm saying?
Some days I struggle to regulate mine. Depends on who is in my face at the moment.
I just saw video footage of like a former MMA fighter last month who was thrown off a flight and proceeded to scream in the faces of like every flight attendant with his like fully tattooed neck,
Oh my God.
like being an absolute piece of shit. And it all started apparently over some misunderstanding about whose bag belongs under whose seat.
Yeah. He probably
So-
has the
Oh,
traumatic
CTE.
brain. Yes.
CTE, which the
Mhm.
thing we couldn't remember
We couldn't
that
remember
one
that
time.
time. We
yeah.
got it this time. I bet he does.
We remembered April, CTE.
Nailed it. So he was also known to harm animals, start
Uh-oh.
fires, and wet
Uh-oh.
the bed,
Uh-oh.
which is known as the McDonald Triad,
Right.
which has largely been discredited that these behaviors are an indicator of antisocial personality disorder. But it has been associated with several serial killers.
Okay.
So,
Just side note.
side note,
All right.
as a teenager, he committed petty crimes. And at the age of 17, he decided to go off of his ADHD medication.
Okay.
He also refused any further mental health care.
Sure.
At the age of 18, he was kicked out of his parents' home and was living on the streets. And for the next several years, he would be in and out of different like halfway houses.
Okay.
While on the streets, he experimented with several different types of psychedelic drugs. In 2011, Kiernan was living in a group home, and the staff there noticed that he would sometimes go into a trance-like state. And after he would come out of this state, he would say that he had no memory of what he did during that time.
Oh, no.
Uh-huh. There was one incident where a staff member found him under his bed, and he said that he didn't know why he was hiding under his bed. Uh-huh. He also made comments to the staff that he couldn't trust anyone and that he sometimes felt like he was going to explode.
Ugh, this sounds like someone who was failed.
Failed. Yeah, big time. He started showing indications of suicidal and homicidal ideation. He was placed on suicide watch at the group home. Later that same year, Kiernan told one of his friends that he wanted to be the greatest serial killer of all time.
Well, that's a goal.
Hashtag life goals.
Holy shit.
Okay, this is a total side note, but I was listening to, I know you don't like Dax Shepard, but his podcast is fucking incredible. And he had an expert on, I can't remember her name. She was a Pulitzer Prize winner. And she's from Seattle. And one of the books that she wrote was about like the serial killers and why there are so many in the Pacific Northwest. Her name is Caroline Fraser. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people talk about it, being like not enough vitamin D because of lack of sun, etc. But she did a whole bunch of testing on like the lead in the air, specifically from the smelters in Tacoma,
Oh.
and like lead being linked to, particularly in the 70s and 80s, and that
Mm-hmm.
being linked to like aggressive behaviors.
I mean, they've talked about lead poisoning being what's wrong with the entire generation of boomers as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and yeah, sure.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he wants to be the greatest serial killer. He started to become obsessed with serial killers. He had a bunch of pictures of serial killers that he saved on his cell phone that he would like show everybody at the group home.
Okay. I mean, that's a okay.
I mean, it's such a fine line. Like you and I are morbidly fascinated with that too, but not
Yeah,
in the
but
kind of like, I want to emulate that.
I mean, I'm kind of over serial killers
No,
actually, personally, like they don't
yeah, not
the,
serial killers so much, but this same lady that talked about the smelters,
uh-huh.
she also went into like the fascination with true crime in general amongst women, and it's more about like hoping to be able to identify behaviors so that we can protect ourselves. Like,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, not what this guy's
I'm
doing.
not like hanging a picture of Ed Kemper on my bedroom wall or anything,
Mm-mm,
Yeah,
mm-mm.
okay.
I used to work with a gal that was pen pals with Charles Manson.
Okay.
She was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the years 2012 to 2014, Kiernan was dating a woman, but she eventually went to the police and reported that he was abusive. And on one occasion, he had choked her with a belt.
Oh.
On another occasion, he slashed her legs with a knife.
Oh my God.
Hmm. After these assaults, he would claim that he had no recollection of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
What finally prompted her to go to the police was when she overheard Kiernan making plans to kill her and set her house on fire.
Was he like telling these plans to a friend?
I'm not sure. Maybe he
Or
was in one of his trance-like states and
and
just
just
talking.
talking out loud to like
Hmm.
to himself?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was arrested and found guilty of assault by strangulation. He was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison, and he was released in March of 2018. Right after his release, he started dating a woman named Christina. He moved in with Christina in Delta Township, Michigan, and Christina would later go on to say that Kiernan was abusive to her from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Christina had a little boy, and Kiernan was also abusive to him.
Oh.
I know. By May of 2019, Kiernan had become extremely violent. He choked Christina with a belt, just like his ex girlfriend, and held a knife to her throat. She said that during these acts of violence, she would see Kiernan go into his trance like state.
Hmm.
Do you think he's faking that, or is he actually like disassociating?
I I don't know.
I don't either.
It sounds like pretty legit to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She told the police that she didn't believe that Kiernan would actually harm her, and it was just his dark fantasies.
I mm,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not victim blaming here,
No, no.
but I beg to differ with
Same,
that assessment.
same. Yeah. On May 6, 2019, he violently assaulted her and strangled her. And it was after this attack that Christina finally went to the police. She filed a report and was able to get an order of protection. But just days after it was issued, he sent her a threatening message and then showed up at her house.
Mm-hmm.
He said to her, "I love you, so I spared you."
What?
Uh-huh. He also said something about how he had to rid his friends of the demons.
Who Who are his friends?
Well, we'll get to that, but they have
Oh,
demons.
okay. Running all through them.
Oh.
Sorry. I had to.
Oh my God. Such a good movie. So Christina calls 911 to report the protection order violation.
Right.
The text messages that he was sending her were coming through at like 3 in the morning, and he was saying things like, I can see you, but you can't see me.
Ew, no.
I know. Yep. So officers were dispatched to her home, and they eventually caught up with Kiernan driving down the freeway. The single officer pulled him over, but called for backup before getting out of his patrol car because of his violent history.
Mm-hmm.
Once there were more officers on site, they instructed him to step out of the car with his hands up, and he was arrested without incident.
Okay.
While he is standing there getting his pocket searched, Kiernan very calmly says, "You guys should probably look at the pictures on my phone.
Oh, no.
You will see the bodies of the 2 people I killed today."
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So officers pull open the photo app on the phone, and sure enough, they find photos of 2 women, both clearly murdered.
Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm. Kiernan says that one of the women was his coworker, Julie. The phone had a series of images and videos of the women, and they had been mutilated.
Okay.
It was difficult to even tell the difference in the photos as far as which photo was which woman because they were so badly mutilated. Officers weren't even sure if it was 2 different women or the same woman in all the photos.
Okay.
So after reviewing the pictures, they go back to the patrol car and they're like, where are the bodies of these women? Kiernan says that one of them was at the Knights Inn Motel, room 215 in the bathtub. And the other one is in Dorchester Apartments somewhere. Mm-hmm. He said that his coworker, Julie Mooney, is the one at the Knights Inn, and a woman named Kaylee Brock is the one at the apartment. So both women were around 30 years old, according to Kiernan. So it's 3:59 a.m. Officers go to Kaylee Brock's apartment. They knock on the door, but they don't get an answer. So after a few attempts, they decide to go in. Upstairs, there was a bathroom light on and music playing.
No.
I know. In the upstairs bedroom, they found a woman lying face down on the bed, and the comforter and pillows were soaked in blood. They could tell instantly, like by the background and the positioning of the body, that this was one of the women from Kiernan's phone.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, another group of officers headed to the Knights Inn motel room, room 215. And right inside the room, they see blood spatter on the bed and a large blood stain on the carpet. And they found a woman dead in the bathtub, also clearly the woman from Kiernan's phone. Yeah. So both women had been mutilated.
Okay.
I know. This one's bad. Really bad. So police drive Kiernan to the police station. He falls asleep in the back of the patrol car on the way.
I mean, it's the middle of the night, you know? He's been busy. He's tired.
Mm-hmm. At the station, Kiernan said that after his fight with Christina, when he had to leave the house, he decided that he was going to kill.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. He checked into the Knights Inn motel, and he sat in the room and sort of frantically started texting everyone in his phone contacts. He skipped work that day and just spent his time in that room texting everyone like his suicidal thoughts.
Okay.
And one of the people in his contact list was Kaylee Brock. Kaylee knew Kiernan from a church that they both attended several years prior. And so Kiernan suggested during this conversation that he come visit her at her apartment.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. And the two exchanged texts throughout the evening before they finally agreed that Kiernan would come for a visit the following day. So Kaylee Brock was diagnosed with autism as a child. Her dad said that even though in 2019 she was 26 years old, her mindset was closer to that of a teenager.
Mm.
She had only recently started living on her own and working a part-time job.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Kiernan and Kaylee did have some kind of a relationship over the years, but they lost touch when Kiernan went to prison in 2014. So Kaylee was really excited to hear from him, and she was like, "Yeah, let's hang out. Come on over to my apartment."
Oh, honey.
Mm-hmm. So Kiernan told her that he would head over to her place as soon as she got off work. After this text exchange, Kiernan goes out and buys a hammer and 3 knives, shows up at Kaylee's that day at around 6 p.m. They visited for about an hour, and he convinces her to go upstairs to the bedroom so he can give her a massage. So Kaylee laid face down on the bed, ready for her massage, and he had his hammer and knives in a bag with him that he carried upstairs. And while she was face down, he hit her over the head with the hammer. Mm-hmm. Kiernan said that he hit her between 20 and 30 times.
Oh my God.
Uh-huh. After she was dead, he used his knife to cut off her clothing, and then he cut his initials into her body. Then he took a total of 6 photos of her. He also took a video and laughed and bragged about his work. He called it artwork and said that he was planning to do it again.
I do not have words right now.
Mm-hmm. He cleaned off his hammer and his knife and cleaned off himself in Kaylee's bathroom. Then after leaving Kaylee's apartment, he sent a text to his coworker, Julie Mooney. He asked her to come over to his motel room. At first, she said that she wasn't feeling well, but Kiernan persuaded her to come, and she agreed to come for a quick visit. I know. Julie was a 32-year-old mom of 2.
Oh.
I know. Friends and family said that her greatest joy was being a mom. She had met Kiernan at a Chili's restaurant where they were both working. So she arrived at the Knights Inn motel before Kiernan was even back from Kaylee's and waited outside for him to arrive. CCTV shows the two going into his room 215 around 10:14 p.m. Once inside, the two sat and talked for a while. He said that Julie was sitting on the bed with her back to him, and he got his hammer and struck her in the head.
Okay.
I know. He said it took 30 minutes for Julie to stop breathing. He was caught on surveillance going in and out of that motel room several times. He did the same thing to Julie that he had done to Kaylee, using the knife to mutilate her body. He cut her clothes off and carved his initials into her, but he also attempted to decapitate her.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. He also took photos and video of Julie. The first photo shows her lying on the floor in the motel room. The last one shows her in the bathtub. There were a total of 8 photos of Julie with the timestamps of about 11:30 p.m. to 2 a.m. Also during this time span, Kiernan left the motel room and took Julie's car to go visit his ex-girlfriend, Christine. Mm-hmm. While driving, he threw Julie and Kaylee's cell phones out the car window. He told investigators that he was only outside of Christine's house for a couple of minutes before he went back to the motel. He also said that he wanted to bring one more woman to the motel room, so he tried to clean up the room so that he could bring someone over, but was too obvious that something bad had happened there and that wasn't going to fly. Mm-hmm. He even sent a Facebook message to a woman he was friends with and invited her over, but she declined. Oh, can you fucking imagine?
Small fucking miracles, yeah. No, I cannot imagine.
Uh-huh. Kiernan sent a text to Julie's phone after he killed her that said, quote, "Rest in peace now, my little one. Justice is served. Your demons are demolished. Your pain is cured. No more sleepless nights. Heaven awaits you. I love you. You're a good friend."
What?
Mm-hmm. He also sent a text to Kaylee's phone that said, "Rest in peace, my little one. Heaven awaits you now. You're no longer trapped in that poisonous body. You can be free now." Which is like,
What?
she was the one with autism.
Yeah.
So it's like,
what?
Fuck, poisonous body. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kiernan told detectives that he had fantasies of killing women for a long time, but when he finally did it, he didn't feel any better.
Oh, I feel so bad for him. It didn't scratch the itch.
Mm-mm. When they asked him if it made him feel bad, he said no, he didn't feel anything.
I'm getting echoes of that kid that killed Warren Barnes in Colorado.
Is that the one with the body parts in the garbage bag in the sink?
Yes.
That was like his arrest was on video?
Yes.
Yeah, reminded me of that too. And even listening to Kiernan's like interview, just the flat affect is so spooky.
Yeah.
Like he's telling somebody a recipe.
Yep.
It's like,
and also the just like immediate just telling of everything.
uh-huh.
Like as soon as he got pulled over, there was no reason for him to.
Yeah. It's so creepy. Like there's no feelings. There's no
and no real grasp of consequences.
Mm-mm. No. No. So Kiernan was booked into jail, and then officers had the difficult task of notifying Kaylee and Julie's families of their murders. In November of 2019, Kiernan had a competency evaluation to determine whether or not he was competent enough to stand trial. And although he had severe mental health issues, it was determined that he was competent and he would go to trial. Because he planned it and like hid the weapons in his bag and like convinced the victims into either coming over or inviting him over, it showed that he was able to be held liable for his actions. I know. In July of 2020, he accepted a plea of guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder with a sentence of 30 to 50 years. But this plea that the prosecutors presented outraged the victims' families and the community because this would make him eligible for parole and like he would be back in the community. And this guy is like, no, right?
Right.
So in sort of a rare occurrence, the judge on the case denied the plea deal.
Oh.
And said that even though she believes in rehabilitation and the opportunity for people to turn their lives around and re-enter society, she doesn't believe that Kiernan is one of those people.
Wow.
I know. He ended up accepting a plea of 2 counts of second-degree murder with a minimum sentence of 70 years per count.
Wow.
Yeah. And that is Kiernan Brown. I know. That one was fucking dark.
That was rough.
I'm sorry, sister.
That was...
I know.
You know, you give me shit for the rough shit I bring to the table, and then you bring me shit like that?
I haven't done one that rough in a while. You've been doing back-to-back rough. No, like you're not even letting me come up for air. It's just boom, boom, boom.
Oh, shit. And I mean, like, you know, I'm an abolitionist, so I don't know what the answer is, but like he needed supervision 100% 90% of the time, his whole fucking life is what he needed.
Mm-hmm. I know. Yeah.
How he didn't end up in like a mental health facility instead is beyond me.
I know. It sounds like his parents just threw their hands up and kicked him out.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they went through leading up to.
Sure. 100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. But still, just failures all around.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, sister, like a little bit of a pivot. How about a little bit of a pivot?
It's not a palate cleanser.
I mean, kind of.
Okay, I'll take it.
Not
real. You're lying.
It's not dark like this.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to tell you about Joan Robinson Hill. Have you ever heard of her?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll start with her dad, Davis Ashton Robinson, known as Ash. He studied dentistry at Tulane College in New Orleans, but he wasn't into it. So after he did all that, he didn't even become a dentist. Instead, he embarked on a series of business ventures, making and losing several fortunes before becoming an oil man.
Okay.
He met Rhea Ernestine Gardier in New Orleans, and they married on July 18th, 1919.
No.
After settling in Houston, the couple discovered that Rhea wasn't able to have kids. So Ash suggested that they should adopt.
Mm-hmm.
In March 1931, Rhea visited the Edna Gladney home in Fort Worth, Texas, where she met 1-month-old Joan Olive, who had been given up for adoption by her unmarried mother, and Ash and Rhea adopted her.
Okay.
It is said that as a child, Joan, quote, was as well attended as a czarina.
What's a czarina?
The woman version of a czar, like royalty.
Oh, they doted on her.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I mean, Ash was an oil man and a very successful one.
Mm-hmm.
This was a well-to-do family.
Gotcha.
Joan began riding horses at the age of 3.
She's a horsey girl.
She's a horsey girl. Big time.
Okay.
Big time.
Okay.
At 5, she won her first horse riding ribbon at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, coming in 3rd on Dottie, an aging horse that Ash had bought for her. It was the first of many contests she entered with Dottie in horse shows across the southern United States. By the age of 7, she was regularly competing at an amateur level, and she continued to achieve success, attaining 1st or 2nd place in almost every contest she entered between 1938 and 1945.
Damn. Okay.
Joan attended Stevens College in Columbia, Missouri, where she was an average student with an active social life. Ash leased a suite of rooms at a hotel close to campus, and Rhea stayed there, and Ash visited regularly himself. When Joan got into theater at school and was cast in productions, she was approached by a talent scout working for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM, who offered her a screen test. Ash refused to let her do that. He thought Hollywood was full of predators who would take advantage of his daughter.
Yeah. I mean, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Never, it's always been the case.
Mm-hmm.
Because Joan wasn't just a privileged young woman who maybe could act. She was also blonde and beautiful with full lips and a gorgeous smile. She was also very sweet, very nice, and everybody who met her just adored her.
Mm.
She was like all around.
Yeah.
While in college, Joan was married twice.
Oh.
Both times before she turned 20.
Dang.
She married Spike Benton, who had a promising career as a Navy pilot, and then New Orleans lawyer and childhood friend Cecil Burglass. Ash did not approve.
Of either of them?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Both marriages lasted barely more than 6 months.
Ooh.
I think Ash didn't approve of them, but also didn't approve of the marriages at all.
Like, he's not going to approve of anybody for his
Well,
daughter,
there's
right?
that. Well, there's that.
Mhm.
There's definitely, like, the theme of this story is daddy's little girl.
Okay.
Okay. But also, she wasn't even 20 yet.
Yeah, that's
she's already
not
like
great.
she's in college. Like,
Yeah.
You know, obviously they're tight, right? Because he got this suite of rooms at a hotel near the college so that her mom could be with her basically the whole time she was away at school.
Which is weird.
It's plus they could afford to do that.
Yeah, it's still weird.
Mm-hmm. Joan competed professionally throughout the 1950s and 1960s, winning as many as 500 trophies on her American saddlebred horses, Beloved Belinda and Precious Possession.
Stop it. Stop it. God.
She had a riding habit made, which is what they call what women wear to ride in. They call it a habit, in the same color as Beloved Belinda. Quote, a lustrous pearl gray, which she wore at shows, and she is credited with starting the fashion of wearing a light-colored habit.
Wow. But she wanted to twin spazzle with her horsey.
Yes.
Good for her. God, just keeps getting weirder.
On September 28th, 1957, Joan married Dr. John Hill, described by the Houston Chronicle as, quote, one of the city's leading plastic surgeons.
Oh.
Their wedding was the talk of the town at the time. These are two prominent socialites in Houston. Quote, it was that month's wedding of the century, you know?
Mm-hmm.
John Hill, born in 1931, was the second of 3 children born to farmer Robert Hill and his wife, Mira, of Edcouch, Texas. Mira was deeply religious, and John was raised in a strict Christian household. John remained religious after leaving home and attended the Church of Christ.
Ooh. It's
That's the same church that Kitty raised her kids in.
Oh boy. And it's not a problem for John or his family that she's been divorced twice.
Apparently not.
Being deeply religious. Okay. All right.
Mira insisted that all 3 of her children receive piano lessons, with John and his brother Julian becoming gifted musicians. John studied a liberal arts course at Abilene Christian College, where he graduated summa cum laude. And then he went on to Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. After graduating, he took a residency in surgery at Houston's Herman Hospital. During the 1950s, Houston-based surgeons such as Michael E. DeBakey and Denton Cooley were pioneering new heart surgery techniques, attracting a high volume of medical residents who wanted to study with them.
Mm-hmm.
Realizing that the city would soon be chock full of cardiac surgeons, John decided to go into plastic surgery. At the time, only 10 certified plastic surgeons were practicing in Houston, and John saw dollar signs in plastic surgery.
Well, yeah.
He was a popular member of the residency program, but almost had his medical career cut short after perforating a patient's bowel during a routine operation, then stitching the man up without repairing the damage. The patient later died of peritonitis, which is inflammation of the lining of the abdominal wall that covers the abdominal organs.
Mm-hmm.
John had his ass handed to him after an autopsy uncovered his mistake. After he was done with his residency, John was offered a partnership by Nathan Roth, a New York City trained surgeon who had established himself in Houston, and John joined Roth's practice in 1963. John's partnership with Roth got off to a rough start. When John decided not to tell his first patient that a drill bit had broken off during a jaw repair operation, leaving it embedded in the patient's face.
This guy is sounding like Dr. Death with his oopsie daisies that he just doesn't tell people. I mean, what are we doing?
When Roth confronted John about this, John was all apologies and said he had been, quote, hesitant to mention this mistake on my very first case.
There's literally hardware in somebody's face.
This
You
is
should
John.
probably say something.
This is John.
Okay, great.
Okay. John's brother Julian had died by suicide shortly before this operation, and Roth gave John the benefit of the doubt because of this.
Okay.
Okay. The partnership between John and Roth dissolved in 1967 after Roth got sick of John, repeatedly asking him to cover for John so that John could go play music shows. And then John opened his own practice in the same building where Roth practiced.
What a dick.
John and Joan became a regular part of Houston's social scene, but they led pretty separate lives. For the first 6 years of their marriage, they lived at Ash's property, moving from there only after a fellow surgeon suggested to John that they should maybe move out of his father-in-law's house.
Uh-huh.
Joan continued to focus on her equestrian career, while John spent all his spare time performing and listening to music. When Joan officially retired beloved Belinda, the event made national headlines.
Stop it.
Sports Illustrated reported that a band played Auld Lang Syne while Joan led Belinda, covered in a blanket of red roses, around the show ring at the Pin Oak Horse Show for the last time in 1959.
I can't.
A groom who was at the event said to his wife that, quote, Abe Lincoln himself didn't have a funeral as good as this one.
Oh my God. Beloved Belinda. I cannot.
In June of 1960, Joan gave birth to a son, and she and John named him Robert Ashton Hill. But Ash nicknamed him Boot.
Okay.
Soon after, Ash bought Joan a farm. She told her dad she wanted to breed horses and open up a riding school. The property, named Chatsworth Farm, was opened in 1963 and became the location of an annual spring picnic for Houston's doctors and their families. In 1965, John and Joan also bought a house, a Southern colonial-style house located in the wealthy neighborhood of River Oaks, just a few blocks from Joan's parents. John wasn't just good on the piano. He also played the trombone, tuba, flute, and recorder. In fact, when he was little, he wanted to be a piano player for a dance band when he grew up. But Mira made both her sons go into medicine.
Okay, that's incredible, but also like you can actually be like a legit recorder player.
Apparently.
I had no idea. Like there's more than hot cross buns.
There's more than hot cross buns.
Who knew?
But John never lost his love for music, even though his mom made him be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And he dedicated at least 20 hours a week to music, taking lessons, practicing, and playing in shows. He was an active member of several groups, including the Houston Brass Quintet and the Heartbeats. After his surgical practice became successful, he told Joan that he wanted to convert a former servant's room of their mansion, into a music room. He asked Ash to lend him $10,000 for the room. But John, sorry, I messed up on my typey. He asked Ash to lend him $10,000 so he could build this music room.
Mm-hmm.
And Ash was like, dude, you still owe me for the loan I gave you so you could buy that fucking place.
Why are they needing loans anyway? He's a plastic surgeon.
Because I'm going to speculate.
Okay,
this is speculation. Because even though he was a plastic surgeon and he was doing well, Joan was accustomed to a lifestyle that was financed by an oil tycoon.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Not plastic surgeon money, but like...
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And probably John was attracted to the fact that she came from such a wealthy family.
Yeah.
And that she was doted on so much by her dad
Mm-hmm.
that they knew that like they could get money from him because of his love of his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
But John was determined to have his music room. And he got a bank loan so he could pay back Ash for the money that he'd lent them to buy the house. And then John hired a sound engineer to create the music room. John told the sound guy, quote, I want the finest music room since Renaissance Italy.
Oh. Okay.
And very quickly, the room cost more than $10,000.
No shit.
By October of 1968, John had spent $75,000 on the music room. One of his dreams was to own a handmade Bösendorfer piano, which is the most expensive piano in the world. When he found out that a local firm had bought the Bösendorfer's Houston franchise, he ordered an Imperial Grand and put it next to the Yamaha Grand that belonged to Joan. In March 1969, John Hill's music room was almost complete, coming in at over $100,000.
More
And
than
just to
10 times what he thought or said.
And just to put this all in perspective, 10 grand in 1968 is worth 92 grand today, meaning that the total John spent on this room, had he built it today, would be about $1 million.
What is for a home studio?
No, a music room.
Okay, sorry. Wow.
The servants' room turned into a ballroom-sized room with a double-height ceiling full of Renaissance-like frescoes with Baccarat brand crystal chandeliers. The carved marble fireplace came from an old Louisiana plantation home. John chose parquet flooring and a gold and white color scheme for the entire room. The pianos were placed at one end, with French provincial sofas and an oriental carpet at the other end. Gold and white silk wall panels hid shelves for records, music-related books, and John's musical instruments. John had 108 speakers installed in the room,
Jeez.
connected with 4 miles of wiring. He spent more than $20,000 on the room's sound system alone. He also added a hidden movie screen to project his collection of comedy films, which was also hidden behind one of the silk wall panels. The room became a bone of contention between John and Joan. Joan was angry about the amount of money her husband had poured into this room. Joan had confided in a friend of hers, quote, "He doesn't care about me or our son or anybody else, only that goddamned music room. I wish he had never started building it."
Okay, but in all fairness, she has a whole ass horse farm,
Right?
right? Doesn't she have a separate property with like a horse school and shit?
Sure, but that's like her business, right? Like her actual, like her business as to have
Okay.
to breed
I know.
horses and teach
Okay.
horse riding.
All right.
Right.
All right. All right.
Meanwhile, Chatsworth Farm was not as successful as Joan had hoped and was not turning a profit.
Well, there you go.
A trainer had worked there until 1967, but he left because he didn't get along with Ash. And by 1969, Ash was considering selling the place. Joan wanted to keep it running, and she persuaded her friend Diane Setagast, who was living in Dallas or from Dallas, to take on the temporary role of trainer.
Okay.
The year of the completion of the music room, 1968, John and Joan's marriage was getting rocky. When Joan got home from a horse show outside Houston, she found a note from John saying that he had left because things were, quote, not good between us. She called his office repeatedly, determined to get more out of him than that, but John would not return Joan's calls. Ash wanted to hire a PI to figure out what the fuck John was up to, but Joan didn't want to do that. Mm-hmm. 2 weeks after leaving, John asked Joan to meet up with him to talk. That's when John told her that he was having an affair.
Of course.
John met Ann Kurth, a thrice-divorced mother of 3 sons, when they were both collecting their children from summer camp in August of 1968. The two quickly started seeing each other after that first meeting. He told Joan that Ann was now blackmailing him. Up to that point, after he had left the house and the note, John had been staying with Ann. But after this meeting with Joan, he went and rented himself a small apartment. In November, John served Joan with divorce papers. Ash had gone ahead and hired detectives to investigate his son-in-law. That's when he found out about this apartment John was renting. Joan told her dad that she still wanted to make her marriage work, despite her husband's affair, and she contested the divorce.
Oh, okay.
In early December 1968, Ash called John at his apartment and asked him to come to the house to meet. Ash had drafted a letter of apology and a reconciliation offer to Joan, and he wanted John to sign it.
This guy is such a fucking meddler. This is too much.
He is such... Oh,
my God.
John was still in debt to Ash for money Ash had lent him for the house and for his surgical practice. Ash implied he would be insisting that John pay him immediately if he didn't return to Joan.
Oh, God. Now he's getting double blackmailed. Jeez.
John signed the letter written by Ash and started to get his shit together to go back home. John withdrew his divorce petition when he and Joan reconciled shortly before Christmas. Not long after John moved back home, Anne started pressuring him, telling him that if he stayed with Joan, she was out. So he continued to see her after he reconciled with Joan.
That's a ballsy move when you have probably at that time what would now be considered a billionaire father-in-law who just has detectives watching what you're doing. Like,
look, by the time I got done with this whole story, I was like, this is Dallas. This is literally the show Dallas.
Jeez. God.
On Friday, March 14th, 1969, John and Joan attended Houston's annual Wild Game Dinner, where John played a concert with the Heartbeats. They left early, and on the way home, Joan asked John if he would be staying out all night again. When he said that he probably would, she reminded him that he'd stayed out all night twice already that week. The conversation turned into an argument. Joan told him that if he did stay out, he should not bother to come back.
Mm-hmm.
When John pulled up to the house, Joan got out of the car, and as he started to drive away, Joan shouted after him, "You've blown it, John. You've just lost your wife, your son, and your goddamn music room."
Mm-hmm.
The next day, John took Boot for a haircut, and during the drive, they swung by his apartment to pick some things up. When they got back to the house, Boot told Joan about the side trip to John's apartment, which Joan had believed John had gotten rid of months ago when he agreed to come home.
Mm-hmm.
And she hears about it from Boot, and she learns that John is definitely still seeing Anne. Joan's girlfriends, Diane, the one that was the temporary trainer, and Eunice were just coming into town to stay with the Hills for a visit. And they arrived shortly after John learned about the apartment and the affair that was still happening.
Okay.
Joan then invited another friend, a neighbor named Van Maxwell, to talk about it. And when Van arrived, Joan roped them all into a game of bridge in the music room. So John's sitting on one end of the room listening to music, while the women played cards at the other end of the room.
Uh-huh.
Joan started talking really loudly about John. And then she would go silent when he would make his way over to their side of the room. She told her friends that she was planning to consult a lawyer on Monday, and Van started to get uncomfortable with the whole situation. She asked Joan to be quiet or she was going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So Joan started writing notes to her friend and repeated what she said about going to a lawyer and taking John out of her will. After a tense evening, John put on a romantic record and came over to stand behind Joan's chair. Diane suggested that the two should dance. And something happened again. And they did. And then everyone retired for the evening. And the next morning, Joan told Diane that John had made her very happy the previous night. Quote, "He told me things I've never heard from the man before in our whole married life. I think it's going to be all right between us from now on."
Mm-hmm.
Diane and Eunice both would later recall a conversation they had with Joan after she rose late on the afternoon of the following day. She told them, quote, "John gave me some pill last night and it really knocked me out."
Uh-oh.
She spent most of the following day in bed after she vomited her breakfast.
Uh-oh.
After checking on her several times, John told Diane and Eunice that he was going to buy some medicine for Joan. John took Boot and the two ladies out for dinner that evening, but Joan was too sick to join them. John bought her a carton of orange juice on the way home and then went to visit some friend. Joan continued to be sick, vomiting several more times. On Monday, March 17th, Diane and Eunice came to her room to say goodbye to Joan as they were heading back home to Dallas. Joan told her friends that she felt dehydrated and asked for some water. She assured them she would be fine, and they left. Effie Green, the Hills' maid, was told that Mrs. Hill was sick in bed and was not to be disturbed for any reason. On the morning of Tuesday, March 18th, Effie went to check on Joan after the doctor had left for the day. She found Joan in a soiled nightgown. When she moved her to help her change into a fresh gown, Effie saw that Joan had been lying in dried feces.
Oh my God.
2 towels had been placed under her due to a recent loose bowel movement that appeared to contain blood.
Oh my God.
Effie did her best to help Joan into the bathroom to clean her. As she did this, Effie noticed that Joan's face began turning blue. Effie hurriedly cleaned up Joan and the bed and called to her husband, Archie, who also worked for the Hills, to call Joan's parents at their home immediately.
Yeah.
When no one answered, Archie tried unsuccessfully to reach John at his office and left a message. So Ash dropped Rhea off at Joan and John's place so she could visit her daughter, completely unaware of what was going on with Joan, since they had not been home when Archie had tried to call them.
Right.
So when Rhea entered Joan's bedroom, she found Joan lying in her own body wastes and vomit, and John standing at the foot of the bed. Rhea took Joan's temperature, and she had a fever. John told his mother-in-law he thought Joan should be taken to a hospital.
Yeah.
But John didn't call an ambulance for Joan, who was now semi-conscious. He insisted on driving her to the hospital himself. The hospital he drove her to was not one of Houston's noted medical centers, but rather a new hospital in Houston's suburbs, Sharpstown General, which was a 45-minute drive from their house.
Mm-hmm.
The hospital had no emergency room or intensive care unit. She was taken into the hospital by a nurse who had come to the car with a wheelchair and was taken to a private room. During the drive, Joan told her mom she was going blind. John just called it a blackout.
Oh my God.
After admittance to the hospital, Joan's blood pressure was 60/40. The nurse promptly took a second reading because she thought she had made a mistake.
Yeah.
And then when she got the same result, she was like, okay, this woman is in shock. So she called Dr. Walter Burtonot, who John told the nurse was Joan's attending physician.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Burtonot knew Joan socially, and he had no idea anything was seriously wrong with Joan prior to the call from the hospital nurse. So this wouldn't have been the same doctor that had been to the house.
Right. No.
John had described Joan's symptoms as nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. So Burtonot initially thought Joan just had a bad case of the flu.
Right.
And when Dr. Burtonot arrived in Joan's hospital room, she recognized him and made a comment about a party they had both attended. He ordered IV fluids, took another history, and now he believed she had a case of food poisoning.
Okay.
Still not certain after his second diagnosis, Dr. Burtonot consulted a colleague, Dr. Frank Lanza, who believed Joan to be in septic shock. Septic shock is the last and most severe stage of sepsis.
Mm-hmm.
Sepsis occurs when your immune system has an extreme reaction to an infection. The inflammation throughout your body can cause dangerously low blood pressure. The doctors ordered blood cultures, which would take 72 hours to process.
God.
Joan had been a patient at Sharpstown General for all of 6 hours when her kidneys began to fail.
Oh my God.
She was not passing any urine and had edema, which is the buildup of fluid in the body's tissues.
Why isn't this hospital transporting her to a hospital that is better equipped to help her?
We get there.
Okay.
So her IV fluids were increased with the hope of being able to prompt her kidneys into producing urine. By 8 p.m., Joan's kidneys had failed to respond, and her condition was considered to be grave. A kidney specialist was called in to consult. He determined Joan was in severe kidney failure. Since Sharpstown General had no dialysis machine, the medical team debated about transferring Joan to Houston Methodist, who had the machines, but they decided she was too sick to be transferred.
Oh my God.
The option for treating her at the hospital was to begin peritoneal dialysis, which is another way to filter out the excess fluids and waste from the body through a catheter inserted into the abdomen.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor wanted John's consent before beginning this procedure and called him at the house at 9:15 p.m. So at some point after taking Joan to the hospital, John went home, I guess.
So she's literally dying and he's like, going home.
Yeah.
Cool.
So John left the house after taking the doctor's call, but he didn't get to the hospital to give his consent until 11 p.m. Almost 2 hours later.
Took the scenic route, did he?
Yeah.
Cool.
Joan was she was conscious and she begged him to stay with her. She told him that she was scared. Dr. Burtnott checked on Joan at 12:30 a.m. on March 19th. While she had not improved, she appeared to have stabilized. Her blood pressure had elevated slightly, and she was responding to the dialysis. So he decided he could leave the hospital for a little bit and get some rest. But Dr. Lanza said he would stay a while longer and he would call Dr. Burtnott if anything changed.
Okay.
John also decided he could get some sleep and found a couch in a hospital records room to crash on. By 1:30 a.m., both Dr. Lanza and the kidney doctor had left the hospital. Joan, who had been heavily sedated, was coherent at times. When John told her he would be down the hall if she needed anything, she asked the nurse attending to her to make sure her husband was comfortable.
Oh.
At 2:30 a.m. on March 19th, the attending nurse noticed that Joan's vital signs indicated sudden heart failure. She ran to the room's doorway and shouted to the nurses station to have the resident on duty come immediately with a crash cart. As she did this, Joan slightly raised her head, gasping John's name.
Oh.
As she tried to breathe, a flood of blood poured out of her mouth. The resident tried to save her by injecting adrenaline into her heart, but he was not successful and Joan died.
Oh, gosh.
She was 38 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
Texas state law at the time required an autopsy before any embalming or burial could take place for anyone who died in a hospital within 24 hours of admission.
Okay.
Dr. Burtnott spoke to John about the legal need for an autopsy. John asked a friend to call a local funeral home to claim Joan's body, and less than 4 hours after her death, the funeral home removed her body from the hospital.
How were they able to release her if it was required that an autopsy be done? Fuck, man.
Within an hour after moving the body from Sharpstown General, the funeral home began the process of embalming Joan's body. The hospital's pathologist arrived at the funeral home at 10 a.m. to carry out the autopsy, only to find that the body had already been embalmed. He concluded his autopsy at 11:30 a.m. without finding any signs of what caused Joan's death aside from a maroon coloration of her pancreas, and concluded that she may have died from pancreatitis.
Damn it.
Ash was not having any of it. And reached out to doctors he knew who told him it was very unlikely that pancreatitis was Joan's cause of death.
Right.
On Thursday, March 20th, 1969, Diane and Eunice returned to Houston to attend Joan's funeral, and Diane went to John and Joan's house to pay her respects. Mm-hmm. When she got there, she found John upstairs in the music room with Boot and some friends, watching a Laurel and Hardy film and laughing. She was pretty disgusted and was about to leave, but John chased her down and stopped her to have a conversation. And she told John it was pretty unbelievable how quickly Joan had died. She asked him why he hadn't been able to help her. John told Diane he wanted to take Joan to the hospital, but she refused to go. He said, quote, "You know what she was like about hospitals."
What?
Diane became quite suspicious because she did not know that about Joan at all, and she took her concerns to Ash Robinson.
Oh, boy.
The next day, on the morning of Friday, March 21st, the day of Joan's funeral, Ash visited the office of Assistant District Attorney I.D. McMaster, where he accused John Hill of killing his daughter, explaining to McMaster the circumstances surrounding her death and autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
McMaster asked the Harris County medical examiner to go to the funeral home to examine the body before the funeral. The ME ordered the hospital pathologist to hand over the blood and urine samples that had been taken from Joan, then drove to the funeral home himself to view the body. So the ME report on the second autopsy, so this would be considered the second autopsy, was delivered a week later at the end of March, ruling out any poisoning and concluding, quote, "It is my opinion based upon a reasonable probability that the cause of death is due to acute focal hepatitis, probably viral in origin."
Okay.
So DA McMaster read that report and thought, well, there's no case. But Ash refused to believe that no crime had been committed. He hired a lawyer and a former Harris County district attorney. And as part of his investigation, Ash's lawyer asked the pathologist if it was possible to inject someone with hepatitis.
Oh.
The pathologist scoffed, calling this unlikely, and suggested that she perhaps contracted the virus from eating shellfish or snails, and said that made more sense. So Ash petitioned John to give permission for Joan's body to be exhumed for another autopsy, but John refused.
Oh my God. He's in charge of whether or not that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. Also, I didn't realize like it being in, I mean, I know that hepatitis is dangerous, but it's not like an instant being injected with hepatitis and then you die 48 hours later.
I mean, I'm not sure.
Okay.
So then Ash went looking for the best pathologist in the United States.
Okay. Of course he did.
Of course he did.
Mhm.
And he, of course he did.
Mhm.
And he hired Dr. Milton Halpern, the chief medical examiner for New York City at the time.
Mhm.
And he came to Houston to examine Joan's body for a third autopsy. An autopsy was also requested by a Harris County grand jury investigating Joan's death. That autopsy was performed by a team of 10 doctors led by Dr. Robert Buckland, who was then the medical examiner for Galveston County, and it included Dr. Halpern, who was deputized as an acting Harris County medical examiner.
Okay.
This is the kind of pull
Yes.
Oil Man Ash has.
Oil man's
okay?
doing it. Yeah.
So, they end up exhuming. They do end up getting to exhume the body.
Mhm.
Okay. And as soon as the caskets opened, Halpern found pieces of dried mud inside, indicating that the casket had been opened after Joan had originally been buried.
What?
Yeah. So he asked the funeral home, and they were like, well, John had he had ordered us to disinter his wife 3 days after her funeral because he claimed he wanted to retrieve a piece of jewelry that had been buried with her. He said that while he had made the wake and funeral arrangements, he had insisted his wife be buried with no jewelry at all, not even her wedding ring.
Okay. So he could sell it?
But Halpern didn't find anything like amiss that would have been related to the original, like the first disinterment. He didn't, but he noted that Joan's stomach and her contents were never removed and examined at the original autopsy. And then he was disapproving of this. And then it became like absolute disbelief when he realized that Joan's brain and heart were missing.
What?
And the pathologist, the original pathologist, was like, oh, well, kind of embarrassed. He was like, he just forgot to return those organs before her
What?
burial. But he did know where her brain was. It was still in the trunk of his car.
Stop it.
So he went to his car and got Joan's brain for Dr. Halpern.
Oh my God. Was this a baby pathologist?
I don't know.
Hold on, let me get her brain out of the trunk of my car.
What?
Ew.
So Dr. Halpern did note that there were traces of meningitis, but he wasn't going to say whether or not that was what she died from.
Mm-hmm.
He examined Joan's body for 7.5 hours and then went back to New York City with tissue samples. And he said, I'll give you a report when I got it together. Right.
Yeah.
So these series of autopsies indicated that Joan had suffered a massive infection from an undetermined source. But because the body had been embalmed before an initial examination was conducted, an exact cause of death could not be identified. The hospital and the Harris County medical examiner initially listed Joan's cause of death as hepatitis, but there was no signs of the disease like jaundice.
Right.
And medical test results were also not indicative of hepatitis. Dr. Buckland, the head of this 10-doctor team, listed Joan's cause of death as meningitis and sepsis. Following the autopsy, the Harris County medical examiner issued a fresh report in which he observed, quote, "It is now my opinion that Joan Robinson Hill came to her death as a result of a fulminating infectious process, the specific nature of which is no longer determinable." Sorry, I've got like major problems with this document today. I don't know why. So when John filed his wife's last will and testament shortly after her death, Ash showed up with a different will,
Mm-hmm.
which he said had been written during that time when Joan and John had separated.
Right.
And he wasn't living there. And in that will, Ash was her executor and left everything to him. And also in that will had Boot going into the custody of Ash and Rhea.
Oh. Okay.
It was signed by two of Ash's friends. One was a former employee, like as witnesses.
Uh-huh. Sure.
John believed the will was a forgery, so he hired 3 handwriting experts to attest that this was forgery. And Joan's signature was different to that than on her previous will, and it did seem kind of like a clumsily typed document. It had like spelling mistakes and language and terminology that was more in line with like somebody who was like trying to imitate legal language.
Yeah.
So John asked the DA office to investigate, but they suggested that we should, we'll deal with this after we deal with, figuring out what actually happened to Joan and how she died.
Right.
And at some point later, Boot even contested the will, like a decade later, and said that it was a forgery. But the probate jury found in favor of Ash.
Okay.
So after Joan died, John married Ann Kurth in June 1969.
Of course he did.
But they divorced less than a year later, shortly before he was indicted for the murder of Joan.
Uh-huh.
Ash was accusing John of poisoning his daughter.
Right.
That's what he assumed. So he petitioned the district attorney to launch a murder investigation. A grand jury began hearing evidence in the summer of 1969 and retired without indicting John. And then District Attorney Carol Vance then put the case before a second grand jury, which ordered, and that's when the exhumation happened of the body. And then it was like right after that John and Ann divorced. In February 1970, the case was heard by a third grand jury.
Jeez.
This panel heard testimony from Ann, who told them that John had confessed to her that he killed Joan.
Uh-huh.
And that he had also tried to kill Ann on 3 separate occasions.
What the hell?
So that Dr. Halpern, the fancy New York doctor, he presented his findings to the grand jury in April of 1970. He noted that John Hill's treatment of his wife at home and the delay in seeking specialized medical attention at a hospital were factors in Joan's death.
Yeah, absolutely.
McMaster and his fellow assistant DA believed that John Hill had murdered his wife, but that there was not enough evidence to indict him. Mm-hmm. So the ADA suggested they could try John for failing to provide an adequate level of care, which resulted in her death. The jury voted 10-2 to indict John Hill for murder by omission, deciding that he had willfully, intentionally, and culpably contributed to his wife's death because he had not given her sufficient medical help.
Okay, that's true.
The state of Texas had not previously indicted anyone on a charge of murder by omission prior to this. It's similar to gross negligent manslaughter.
Mm-hmm. Right.
John Hill's murder trial began on February 15th, 1971. Anne testified against him, claiming that he had tried to kill her on June 30th, 1969, by crashing their car into a bridge and by injecting her with a hypodermic syringe.
Oh.
She also told the court that he had confessed to killing Joan, explaining in detail how he had allegedly done it by lacing pastries with infectious bacteria and later injecting Joan with the same bacteria.
Ew.
Anne's testimony contradicted a charge of murder by omission in the indictment.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, John's attorney was granted a request for a mistrial.
Come on.
John's second trial was eventually scheduled for November 1972. But then, on September 24th, 1972, a little over a month before John's second trial was supposed to begin, John was shot and killed by a masked gunman during what appeared to be a robbery at his mansion as John and his third wife, Connie, returned home from a medical conference in Las Vegas.
Let me guess. Ash had something to do with this?
He was found in the foyer of his house, mouth and nose was taped, laying in a pool of blood. Boot witnessed the whole thing. His hands and feet had been bound while his dad was gunned down, and when the paramedics arrived, he was standing over his dad, sobbing. He was 12.
Oh.
The first break in the case came when the gun was recovered from some bushes in the River Oaks neighborhood where the Hills lived. The weapon was traced to a doctor in East Texas who told detectives that a sex worker he had hired had stolen his gun. This led investigators to Dallas, then back to Houston, and eventually 3 people, including the sex worker, the shooter, and the supposed madam, were all charged.
God.
Bobby Wayne Vandiver was arrested for John's murder in April 1973 and eventually confessed. He told police that he had done it for money. $5,000 to be exact, a contract killing. During his confession, Vandiver implicated Marcia McKittrick, his girlfriend, the sex worker, and Lilla Paulus, the supposed madam. They were his accessories.
Okay.
On April 25th, 1973, a grand jury voted to indict Bobby Vandiver and Marcia McKittrick for first-degree murder and indict Lilla Paulus as an accomplice to murder. Vandiver's trial was set for September 1973 and then rescheduled for 1974, but Vandiver failed to appear. So this guy was up for murder charges, but he wasn't in custody. He somehow was allowed to, as long as he checked in, he was allowed to not be in custody prior to trial.
That's weird. Okay.
But then he moved to Longview, Texas, and assumed a fake name because he didn't. And so a Longview police officer was suspicious of this newcomer in his town. After discovering the man's first name was actually Bobby, the officer confronted Vandiver at a cafe one evening in May, and Vandiver pulled a gun, so the officer shot him dead.
This story is wild.
I know! And I'm not done!
My
so Marcia McKittrick remained at large for several months, but was finally arrested in Dallas in September of 1973 after attempting to cash a forged payroll check at a drive-in bank. Under questioning, she corroborated Bobby Vandiver's story and also told investigators that she had met Ash Robinson while she was staying with Lilla Paulus in 1972. McKittrick claimed that Ash had said he would do anything to get custody of his grandson, but that the only way that would happen is if John was dead.
Yep.
She said that Ash and Lilla Paulus had met frequently at Ben Taub Hospital, where money was handed over, and that Ash had also visited Paulus at her home, where he gave her the floor plans of John's home and $7,000 on the day of the shooting. McKittrick was tried and convicted in 1974 of being Vandiver's getaway driver, and she was given a 10-year sentence and paroled after serving 5. At Paulus's trial, McKittrick testified that Ash had paid Paulus $25,000 to find someone to eliminate John Hill, and that in turn, Paulus had paid Vandiver $5,000 to do the murder. McKittrick and Ash both passed polygraph tests. According to the magical cans, McKittrick was being truthful when she said Ash had John murdered, and Ash was telling the truth when he said he had nothing to do with John's murder.
Yes, and both of those things can be true. Yep. Good old magical cans.
Lilla Paulus was convicted and given a 35-year sentence. Ash claimed that Paulus had loved Joan and that her actions were born out of a sense of justice for avenging Joan's death. He continued to maintain his innocence. Lilla Paulus died of breast cancer at the Gatesville prison on May 16, 1986. But no one was ever fully satisfied with the outcome because there was no good reason for Lilla Paulus to use Marcia to hire Bobby to kill John unless Lilla was doing so for someone else. And there was very loose evidence that Lilla did have some kind of connection to Ash Robinson through Diane, although Diane testified at Paulus's trial that she had only ever seen Ash and Paulus in the same place at the same time once, at a Chatsworth Farm holiday party. In fact, years later, the former assistant district attorney would tell a reporter that he believed Ash was the person behind the hit on John Hill and that there was enough evidence to indict him, but not enough to get a conviction. It can't be had on the testimony of accomplices alone, and in his mind, Ash got away with murder.
Yep.
The events surrounding the death of Joan Robinson Hill have been the subject of several books, as well as a 1981 television film called Murder in Texas, starring Farrah Fawcett as Joan.
Oh.
Journalist and author Thomas Thompson's 1976 book Blood and Money is a detailed account of the case. He became interested in the story while shadowing doctors in Houston as research for a previous book of his called Hearts, about the world of cardiac surgery. Ann Kurth filed a $3 million lawsuit against Thompson over his description of her as a, quote, provocatively dressed, heavily made-up woman. Her lawsuit was dismissed by a jury in March of 1981, which decided that, although derogatory, his description of her was accurate.
That's terrible.
This was only one of 3 legal cases brought against Thompson for his book.
Wow.
Ann Kurth published her own book called Prescription Murder, where she claimed again that John had tried to kill her and that he may have poisoned Joan with bacteria-laced pastries. Interestingly enough, Diane and Eunice had later claimed that while they were staying at the Hills right before Joan died, John would go out after getting called away by his pager. And when he would come home, he would bring pastries, but insisted on choosing which ones each of them would eat.
Oh my God. Well, there you go.
Anne also suggested in her book that John had not been killed in 1972 and had instead moved to Mexico after faking his death.
Stop it, Anne.
The movie starring Farrah Fawcett suggested this theory as well.
Oh.
A journalist who wrote an article right before the film aired on NBC did note that the face of the shooting victim had been battered and that there was anomalies in the autopsy report. Specifically, John Hill had a different eye color from that recorded for the autopsy. The journalist also pointed out that John was facing heat from the IRS and, of course, a murder trial. Sightings of John Hill had also been reported in Mexico and New York City.
But wouldn't Boot know?
Right?
Yeah.
After John died, Connie Hill, his third wife, petitioned the court for custody of Boot. She was joined in filing with John Hill's mother and sister. Connie and Boot lived in the Hills mansion for several years. Boot decided to sell the house in 1981 when Connie was preparing to remarry. By that time, he had reconciled with his grandparents and was living in Pensacola. In 1979, Ash and Rhea Robinson had relocated to Pensacola to get away from everything in Houston.
Yeah.
Ann Kurth and her 3 sons went into seclusion outside Austin, Texas, where she died in January 1990 at the age of 59. Ash died in Florida in February 1985, aged 87. Rhea died aged 86 just over 2 years later in June 1987. And that is the story of Joan Robinson Hill.
Shit, sister. That was fucking wild.
Right?
That was... that needed red yarn, and...
Right?
that was almost as wild as the pizza bombing.
That right up there with the pizza bombing.
Yeah, right up there with pizza bombing. Oh my God.
I mean, I seriously would not be surprised if that whole thing in that book right, I would not be surprised at all if that literally was the inspiration for the show Dallas to even start.
Yeah, that was wild.
Right?
Yeah. Shit. Well, we did it.
But it was kind of a palate cleanse, right?
Sort
Kinda?
of. I mean,
Sorta.
I mean, lots of people died, but that was wild.
Yeah.
Fuck, sister. Good job.
Hey, thanks.
Sign up for our Patreon.
Do it.
Patreon.com, yakety yak.
Don't talk back. Just
Do it.
hit that back
Yeah.
slash something.
Exactly. $5 a month gets you regular episodes a day early, gets you a bonus episode every month. Sometimes we do virtual wine night.
Sometimes.
And you can join for free if you'd like, and just see
come
the
hang
other
out.
stuff that we put up there.
That's right.
Oh,
Give us a review.
Yes.
Go to your Apple. If you have an Apple product, go to the Apple podcast. It's typey. You can typey.
Yeah.
A nice little review for us.
That would be splendid.
Oh, sister, I love you, so fucking much. That was chaotic.
So chaotic.
Jesus.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Crime, Wine, and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Jeremy Williams. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/Crime, Wine, and Chaos. Cheers!